Hi, I'm Rainbow Sparkle and this is the Enchanted Wood by Enid Blyton, and this is chapter 20. Off to Dame Slap's school. Joe flew the aeroplane very well indeed. As soon as he was high enough, he pressed the straight on handle of the shining aeroplane as it flew forward. The children leaned over the side to see what they were flying over. They had soon passed the land of Take What You Want and came to a strange, empty country with no trees nor grass that grew, and not a house was to be seen. "That is the country of loneliness," said Moonface, peering over. "Don't land there, Joe. Fly on." Joe flew on. Once he came to an enormous hill and he had to press the handle marked up, or the aeroplane would have flown straight into it. It was really great fun. Joe had an idea that it was so easy to fly. The little white goat on Bessie's knee was as good as gold. It licked Bessie's cheek every now and then as if it were like a dog. The hens were good and quiet, and the clock lay perfectly still. The aeroplane flew over a land of great towers and castles. "That's Giant Land," said Silkie, looking in wonder at the enormous buildings. "I hope we don't land there." "Oh, rather not," said Joe, as he pressed straight on handles still, even further, so that the aeroplane flew forward like a bird, faster and faster. The children's hair streamed backwards, and as for Silkie's mop of golden hair, it looked like buttercup blown in the wind. Over the land of lollipops they went, and over the country of Flop. And then the aeroplane began to make a funny noise. "Hello," said Joe. "What's wrong?" "I believe the aeroplane's tired," said Moonface. "It sounded out of breath." "Don't be silly, Moonface," said Joe. "Aeroplanes don't get out of breath." "Oh, well, this kind do," said Moonface. "Can't you hear it panting?" It certainly sounded like the aeroplane was panting. It went. "Had we better put it down for a rest?" said Joe. "Yes," said Moonface, peering over the side. "It seems quite safe. I don't know what this land is, but it seems quite ordinary. There's a big green house down below and an enormous garden. Perhaps if we land along that great smooth lawn, Joe, we shouldn't get bumped when we land." "Right," said Joe, and he pressed the handle marked down, and down they went, gliding smoothly. Bump! They reached the grass and ran along. The aeroplane's big wheels went. It stopped and everyone got out, and they were glad to stretch their legs. "10 minutes rest, aeroplane, and we'll get off again," said Moonface, patting it. It was still panting. "I wonder where we are," said Silkie, looking around. Moonface gazed at a big greenhouse in the distance, and then he frowned. "Oh my," he groaned. "I know whose house that is. It's a school, and it belongs to Dame Slap. All the wicked pixies and gnomes and fairies are sent here to learn to be better. Let's hope Dame Slap doesn't catch sight of us." Everyone looked about nervously, and suddenly down the path came a tall old woman with large spectacles on her long nose and a big white bonnet on her hair. Moonface ran to the aeroplane. "Quick," he said, "it's Dame Slap." But the old lady was up to them before they could even escape. "Ah," she said, "so here is another lot of naughty folk sent to me to cure. Come this way, please. We haven't been sent to you, said Joe. We landed here to give our aeroplane a rest, and then we are on our way home. Naughty boy to tell stories like that, said Dame Slap. And she gave poor old Joe a sharp smack that made him jump and turn red. Come with me, all of you. There didn't seem anything else to do. Joe, Bessie and Fanny, Moonface, Silkie and the great goat and the 7 hens all followed Dame Slap, looking very miserable. The clock wouldn't walk, so Silkie had to carry it. It was so upset it didn't even tick. Everyone felt hungry. Joe pulled Dame Slap's sleeve. Could we please have something to eat? He asked. Tea will be ready in a few minutes, said Dame Slap. Heads up, everyone. Don't stoop, little girl. The little girl was poor Fanny. She had to lift up her shoulders and stand up straight. Really, Dame Slap was not a nice person. It was very bad luck to have landed in her garden, but everyone cheered up at the thought of tea. They were taken into a large hall full of pixies and other fairy folk. They were all sitting down in rows at wooden tables, but they stood up when Dame Slap came into the room. Sit over there, said Dame Slap, pointing to an empty table. The children, Moonface, Silkie, the goat and the hens all took their place. The clock was stood at the end and looked very sulky. The children looked down the tables. Oh, what lovely buns and gorgeous biscuits with big jugs of lemonade. The Dame Slap ran her eyes over the little folk standing at the table. She frowned. Twinkle, come here, she said. A small pixie walked up to her. Haven't I told you to brush your hair properly for meal times? Said Dame Slap, and she slapped the pixie hard. Twinkle burst into tears. And there's Doodle over there with a torn dress, said Dame Slap. Come here, Doodle. Doodle came and was slapped very hard indeed. Bessie and Fanny felt nervous and hoped that their hair and dresses were very clean and tidy. Sit, said Dame Slap, and everyone sat. Have a bun, she said, and Joe passed it on to Bessie and Fanny, a plate of delicious looking buns with jam in the middle. But what a shock for them. As soon as the buns touched their plates, they turned into hard pieces of stale bread. The children didn't dare to say a word. They saw that the same thing happened to everyone in the room except Dame Slap, who made a marvellous tea of buns and biscuits and pieces of plum cake. The lemonade turned into water as soon as they poured it into their glasses. It was dreadfully disappointing. In the middle of the meal, a gnome servant came in to say that someone wanted to speak to Dame Slap, and she went out of the room. And then, dear me, the children found that the little folk in the room decided to be very bad indeed. They crowded around them and poked them and pinched them and made such rude remarks that some of them began to cry. They made such a noise that nobody heard Dame Slap coming back again. My goodness, wasn't she angry? She clapped her hands together and made everyone jump nearly out of their skins. What is all this? She shouted in a fierce voice. Form a line and march past me at once. To the children's dismay, not everyone was as good as they were, and they were going to get a good hard slap as they passed the cross old woman. But when they passed her, she did not slap them, for she knew that they had been teased by the others, so they were very glad indeed and felt a lot more cheerful. "Go to the schoolroom," said Dame Slap when the last of the line had gone by. So to the schoolroom they all went and took their places, even the little green-winged hens. "Now, please answer the questions written on the blackboard," said Dame Slap. "You have each got paper and pencil. Anyone putting down the wrong answers will be very sorry indeed." Joe looked at the questions on the board. He read them out to the others in great astonishment. "If you take away 3 caterpillars from one bush, how many gooseberries are left? Add a pint of milk to a peck of peas and say what will be left over. If a train runs at 6 miles an hour and has to pass under 4 tunnels, put down what the guard's mother is likely to have ready for Sunday dinner." Everyone gazed at the board in despair. Whatever did the questions mean? They seemed to be nonsense. "I can't do any," said Moonface in a loud voice, and he threw down his pencil. "It's all silly nonsense," said Joe, and he threw his pencil down too. The girls did the same, and Silkie tore her paper in half. All the pixies and fairy folks stared at them with the greatest astonishment and horror. "Indeed?" said Dame Slap suddenly, looking twice as big as usual. "Is that how you feel? Well, come here." Nobody wanted to go, but they found that they had to. Their legs walked them up to Dame Slap without even being made to. It was most extraordinary. Dame Slap led them to a small room and pushed them all in. She then shut the door and slammed it and turned it and locked it with the key. "You will stay there for 3 hours and then I will come and see if you are sorry," she said. "Oh, this is awful," said Joe. "She's no right to keep us here. We don't belong to her silly school. We haven't been naughty. It was just an accident that we even came here." "Well, what are we going to do now?" said Silkie, pushing back her golden hair. "It seems as if we're going to stay here for 3 hours and then say we're sorry and be slapped, and I don't like it at all." But nobody liked it. They all sat on the floor and looked angry and miserable. If only they could escape from Dame Slap's silly old school.